Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today's webinar is Meet the Willow and the Poplar Series car seats from Britax. And again, this webinar is brought to you by State Farm and Safe Kids. Go ahead to the next slide there, Sarah, if you can. There we go. So I just want to remind everybody that those of you that registered for the webinar and are logged in will get credit for watching the webinar. But if you are watching with friends, that is perfectly fine. All you need to do is quickly organize an in-person session, and you do that by just designating a lead, get a sign-in sheet, and then you will add that CEU as an in-person session instead of as a webinar on your profile page. So you may watch with friends if you would like. And then lastly, again, please, that reminder, if you can please put your questions in the Q&A box instead of in the chat box, that just helps us so that we don't miss out on any of your questions. Next slide. So our objectives for today are we're going to be discussing the features and child fitment capacities of the Willow S, and the Willow SC rear-facing only car seats. We're going to review the installation of the Willow S, and Willow SC rear-facing only car seats with the click tight. We're going to discuss the features and child fitment capacities of the Poplar and the Poplar S convertible car seats, and also then review the installation of the Poplar and the Poplar S convertible car seats. So we are very fortunate to have on the call with us today, as many of you know, Sarah Tilton. She is the Director of Compliance and Advocacy for Britax Child Safety. As an active CPS technician since 2002 and an instructor in 2003, Sarah is the spokesperson for Britax within the advocacy community, participating in child passenger safety activities at a local, state, and national levels in the United States, Canada, and Latin America. Sarah serves on the new product development, technical writing, and marketing teams at Britax. And in addition, she managed and developed the training curriculum for the Britax Consumer Services Department and organized and implemented a permanent checking station at Britax during her 22 plus years with the company. She has served on the National Child Passenger Safety Board, and she was representing the at-large population. So we are very happy to have you on the call with us, Sarah. And with that, I will turn it right over to you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you to Safe Kids and State Farm for hosting this event today, as well as to all of you guys, the attendees who are out there and joining today. It's great to see so many people coming online, and you're still kind of drifting in, so that's great. We are primarily going to talk about the Willow series of car seats as well as the Poplar series, because, you know, in the objective, Stephanie mentioned a couple of different models, you know, and it's like all the other models out there of car seats, you add different features to them and give them a different name, of course. Here is my email address, and as always, you'll see it again at the end when we're taking questions, and you'll be, you know, if you don't have it as well, you will, when Stephanie sends out the email, you'll be getting a PDF of the majority of these slides. The ones that I have video clips in, of course, I didn't send because you're going to get a PDF. But with that, let's jump right in, okay? So when we talk about the Willow series car seats, we have 3 different versions, and each one of these 3 car seats have very similar, or have some identical features, and then a few things that will separate them. So the first one that came to market was the Willow on your far left. And the I always refer when I go left to right is on my left is like that baseline. And as I move across over to the right, it then will add features and of course add to the price point typically. So the Willow was only sold as a travel system with, with the stroller and a base. A few months later, we brought to the market the Willow S. Now the Willow S is sold as you see it, car seat and base together. And then there are some versions of travel systems with a couple of different model strollers as well. And then of course the Willow SC. Again, it will be sold as a stroller system. Well, and as a car seat and base. We're going to take a look at each one of these seats. So we'll talk a little bit about the differences, but all of the weight range, the height range, and they are all rethread harness systems. They do all have 2 buckle positions. They all have the European belt guide, and they all have a date of, an expiration of 6 years from date of manufacture. But now let's take a look at, try to, narrow out the uniqueness here and the differences. So one of the big things about the Willow series infant seats is it brought to market click-tight installation technology in the base, okay? The carrier can be installed without the base, as most rear-facing only or infant seats can. It does have belt guides on the side, but it does include a click-tight installation technology. Now we know that all the seats out there, different models that Britax includes, has different, it has click-tight, but it's been implemented a little bit differently. So here is an example of the Willow S. And the difference between the Willow S and the Willow, one of the primary differences is yes, it can be sold or purchased just as a car seat and a base. But you'll also see that it has the rebound reduced stability bar. You and I typically only or typically call this the ARB, anti-rebound bar. Our marketing department has gone through and, maybe made some things a little bit more realistic, right? Anti means none, when rebound bars actually have they allow some movement. And these are the colors that the Willow S comes in. And we're going to look at some dive into it a little bit about features as well as installation. But the Willow SC has the rebound reduce stability bar, but the handle is also a little bit different. It's metal, and it has a one-hand adjust on the carry handle. So up on top, there's like a little slide trigger that you can pull back with your thumb and rotate the handle. So you don't need to reach across and rotate both of them. All right, fashions, you'll see the what we call product pages. URLs are on the bottom of the screen for you guys. So you'll be able to go to those, and they're not hard if you just go to us.britax.com to find them as well, where you'll find additional information. I have included the MSRPs for everybody because they are new products, but please also note that there might be different levels of fabrics that do tend to change the price point sometimes, right? So I believe hopefully everything that I've got here are the starting price points. So we look at the Willow and the Willow S versus the Willow SC. The inserts or head pad and infant positioning pillow, they are 2 pieces. They do look different in the seats themselves, but they do have the same usability, if you will. The head pad pieces are basically optional. Use them until they fit, or, you know, the child's head is uncomfortable being kind of snuggled by them. And the infant positioning pillow is not mandatory, but if it is used, it must be removed at that 11 pounds. And that's where we say it can be used. Okay, so ultimately think about it can be used in these seats as optional equipment, but if used, again, you must remove them at 11 pounds. So Britax has put together a bunch of features, several features, and given it a name, the right size system. And really, it's the adjustments in which the harness system can be adjusted to fit around the child. We have 4 harness slots, as I mentioned earlier. We have the buckle slot positions as well. And harness loops continue to be on the end of the harness system. I do believe these are shipped in the shorter length. They can be adjusted to the outer length, but here's kind of a difference between the versions that are phasing out of the market, being that Gen 2 version, is that you couldn't use the outer loop for the smaller infant. On these seats, you can basically use either inner or outer loops as long as you're getting a good fit on the smaller child, okay? We've added hip anchors to this platform, or the Willow series, and we're going to take a little bit closer look at what these will look like, what the hip anchors will look like. All right. Looking at some of the basic features of the carrier, I mentioned it has the baseless belt guides on the sides. It does have the European belt path. It does have the safe cell still present. However, this time it's been built into the carrier itself, as opposed to the older versions. It was in the base. Universal stroller connection. So the universal stroller connection is a little bit different than the older ones. So the new carriers will not fit in some of our older strollers. And let's see what else we got. We talked about the rebound reduced carry handle. Most all of Britax fashions are now FR chemical free as safe wash. And I say that most because there still are a few fashions and some of the older platforms that exist, older models that are not safe wash. Aspen click tight base. So here's where we take that carrier off. We're looking at the base. We have recline indicators on both sides of the base still. There is a user guide storage slot at the front end of the base where the user guide can slide in there as well. Notice that there's belt guides on each side of the base. And regardless of how we're installing the space, meaning lap belt, lap and shoulder belt, or lower connectors, that webbing is going to go through underneath these belt guides on both sides. And then you're going to hear me talk about sloppy loose in a minute. And when you route a webbing through this mechanism, you're going to need to leave yourself more slack than you would typically in any of the other click-tight technologies. Because the distance from this surface where that webbing is going to come over the edge of the base, and when this mechanism pushes the webbing down, the depth of that draw, if you will, is quite deep. When we're talking about adjusting the hip slots, the hip anchors, When you look at the underside of that carrier, technically you're going to see 3 slots on each side. You've got the inner slot, the outer slot, and there's one in the middle. But that one in the middle is always to be used as the anchor slot for that 3-bar slide, right? So it is kind of J-looped down through the shell, and the 3-bar slide always sits in that center slot. So you only have 2 positions, the very inner position or the very outer position. And these are snapshots straight out of the user guide. So I'm not showing you guys anything that you won't have access to. And these user guides are already posted on our website as well. And I see the question about Canada. Everything that we're talking about is really focused on the US. I will likely do something in Canada when we get a little bit closer to having a little more product, a newer product up there for you guys. So you're going to place the base on the vehicle seat. There's a little gray button, if you will, right here that you're going to squeeze and kind of pull that handle up toward you as you see it happening here in this illustration. Once you have it up, you're going to pull your, I'm assuming most vehicles have lap and shoulders in the back seat. You're going to pull that lap and shoulder belt together, and you're going to route it underneath your belt guides, underneath the clip type mechanism on both sides. Now, once you have this open, it kind of rocks back and forth a little bit. And this area on each side kind of has like little guides or little nubs to keep the seat belt up. And part of the rocking back and forth is so you can get the webbing up underneath those little guides or nubs. And so this is where you really want to leave yourself some extra slack, because then when I push this handle closed, push it down to get this indicator window to turn green, it takes a good bit of webbing to kind of almost think about that belt path for that webbing as a U shape, okay? And you're going to hear an audible click. You've got pins at both ends of this mechanism that are going to fire and give you that green indicator when it is completely closed, all right? This is going to be a quick video that we did for social media. There is formal videos out there on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, as well as our website. But this just plays very nicely in the presentation world. There's no audio. You can see I opened it up. The webbing goes underneath. I rock the mechanism to the opposite side so I can get my webbing and push down. Now this was in I'll play it one more time. This was in an Acura RDX. So it's not a huge SUV, but it has a little bit of height, and I'm only 5 feet tall. So I didn't really step up into the vehicle by any means. This is the same installation, but using the lower connectors, which are stored in that lid. And in there is where you're going to find the date of manufacture label and serial number on your base. And there is also one on the underside of the carrier in the typical location. This particular vehicle was a little bit tough getting that lower connector on, and we thought about taking it out, making it a little bit clearer, but it is real life. And see that center strap that I kind of pushed aside here? I wanted to make sure that the strap that holds the connector webbing, I need it to be just off to the left or the right of that pin so that it allows the pin to fire. I put this in here because this is always one when people learn how much overhang and they hear the numerical value of OMG 4.7 inches. It's huge. The 4.7 inches is longer than the 3 inches on our previous version. However, and it is in the user guide, again, this is straight out of the user guide. This picture here is a little bit of overhang. It wasn't very much really in a 2023 Honda CR-V. This, what we did here is the base of the vehicle front seats, both passenger and driver, are all the way back. I forget the angle that we have the back of the front seats positioned at, but really this seat kind of goes more straight up, if you will, where this one has a much broader angle, okay? So the Willow series base is longer and with a much more vertical to the end of the carrier, where ultimately these two, when installed, the carrier doesn't take up any more room than the Gen 2. And then, of course, like many rear-facing only seats, when you install them without the base, it's a shorter install overall together. So the Willow was behind the passenger and the Gen 2 was behind the driver. And again, we had both front seats set the same, just to kind of give you guys a visual, because I do know that that 4.7 inches tends to shock people a little bit. And we like to do the math and give the numerical figures. So here is the new Click-Tight convertibles, the Poplar and the Poplar S. And the driving force with this product, or these two products, is that it is 17 inches wide. So we did narrow our convertible line significantly. And of course, that dimension is without the cup holders in place. The cup holders do come with both car seats. They're in the box in a plastic bag. But if you're doing 3 across, it's very likely that you may or may not be able to use the cup holders because they do extend beyond that overall width of 17 inches of the car seat. Okay. These convertibles do also go to 50 pounds rear facing. So that's another step up from our previous version of Click-Tight convertibles. These are both no rethread with 14 harness positions and 3 buckles. The lower connector maximum child weight capacity is 35 pounds, both seats, both directions, rear and forward facing. These seats do have a 10-year expiration date from date of manufacture. I think I do in your upper right-hand corner, the DOM label on these seats are on the back side of the shell. So very visible, not underneath the cover. They're very visible on the outer area of the shell. Okay. Up to 65 pounds forward facing with the 49-inch overall standing height. Now, one of the things that I will call out for both the Poplar series as well as the Willow series is when we are positioning the harness relative to the child's shoulders. You know, that rule of thumb is at or below rear facing and at or above forward facing. But these new products from Britax are looking for rear facing in the position that is closest to but below the shoulders. Forward facing in the Poplar and Poplar S, we're looking for in the closest position but above the child's shoulders. So that word at the child's shoulders height for either direction is not what we're looking for, okay? And that is, it is pretty clear in the user guide. But again, we look at these user guides all, days and days and weeks in a row. So while I say that, somebody might not think it's as clear. So for the Poplar convertible seat, again, the cup holders do come in the box. They're not installed, so there are caps in where the cup holders are attached. To attach the cup holder, you must remove this little cap that's plugging up the hole, if you will. On both sides, there are caps. One or the other must be in place. So if you are not using the cup holder, you should have the caps in place. And, if they take the caps out to use the cup holders, they should store those caps in a safe place. So if for some reason they remove the cup holders, they will have them, to put back into position. Again, all these fabrics on the Poplar line are safe wash. They do not have any added FR chemicals. What else can I tell you guys about this seat? We do have the recline indicators on both sides, as typical with Britax products. We have English on one side and French on the other side. Okay. We will move on to the Poplar S. The first primary difference that you guys are seeing here is the rebound reduced stability bar. So that comes with the Poplar S, where for the Poplar, it is coming as an accessory, like we've done in the past, has not been released yet as an accessory. I anticipate that that's probably going to hit market sometime in April or early May. Again, a wide variety of colors that are available. You'll also see some differences here in the inserts. So there is that kind of additional piece in the head area underneath the Britax logo, much like the One for Life that just kind of pulls out. There's no required usage or guidance on that particular item. It's just kind of when it's snuggling the child's head too much, regardless of age, weight, height, or harness position, just slide it out. The lower infant insert that the child is sitting on is the same, similar to the Poplar, but this one does have a back insert as well that has some usage requirements, and we will take a look at that in just a minute here. All right, this is again just a really short video. So the click type mechanism in this is much like what you see in the One for Life, having those very large pieces that you squeeze together at the front underneath the cover, and then you just route the belt. The belt paths are very similar to the previous click type convertibles, being that there is a front and a back, rear facing and forward facing belt paths. We were consistent with the same color coding, green for forward, blue for rear facing. Okay, and then of course it's not showing you here. We're focusing on the use of the click type mechanism, but forward facing installations, Britax does always strongly recommend the use of the top tether. It is not a mandatory requirement because we do recognize that there are vehicle positions that out there that do not have top tethers, tether anchors, but we do always highly recommend if there is a tether anchor, we should use the tether. So here is one or a couple of unique things about the Poplar and the Poplar S. The most unique is being the harness pads. And the harness pads cannot be removed. They are permanently attached to the seat. They can be kind of tucked behind the head wings for certain weight ranges, rear facing. And we want to, or I want to point out, I'm sorry, I tend to lose my thought process. I think I have everything laid out in my head and then I'm looking at it with a blank stare. On our lower insert, you'll see that the lower insert is identical between the Poplar and the Poplar S. It is required for a child under 22 pounds, rear facing. You're going to take it out at 22 pounds and you're not, of course, not going to use it at all forward facing. That upper body support pillow is for that child 5 to 20 pounds rear facing. And notice that it says may be used. So that means it's optional. If you don't like the way that it fits with the child that's under that 20 pounds, then you don't have to use it. But the lower infant insert is required up to 22 pounds. And the harness pad requirements are the same for both the Poplar and the Poplar S. I do want to talk about the recline indicator on the Poplar and Poplar S. You'll notice that on the left-hand side, early on in the very beginning of the launch of the Poplar, there was some conversation and many thought that the label on the seat was applied incorrectly. The label on the seat is applied correctly. There was an illustration, supporting illustration in the user guide that was removed because it did not mimic or represent the written verbiage. The written verbiage that was in the user guide was always accurate. So it can be, both of these seats can be installed a little more upright than other seats that we've seen from us in past years. We did just install this in the Honda CR-V the other day, comparing it to, and I'll show you guys a picture in a minute, of the previous click-type convertibles. And we did actually get it in the most upright position, but the ball was past the blue. It was not in an appropriate recline angle. So you can exceed and get that ball out of the correct angle when you're rear facing, if you're trying to put it too upright. But we've tried to give a lot of range for the caregivers. We know that the older the child, the heavier the child, usually the weight comes with the age, right? Rear facing, that they're going to want to be more upright, but we do still have to keep that ball in the appropriate range or in the angle. And you can get it too upright and the ball be out of the blue in the black, and that would be considered unacceptable. Another area that I wanted to point out is that in the user guide, we talk about no side overhang. And when we talk about no side overhang, we're talking about the portion of the base that is intended to contact the vehicle seat, okay? And so if you look at the bottom of a Poplar or Poplar S, you're going to see these kind of, I'm not really sure how, I want to say waffled, but they're not really waffled, right? Runners, if you will. And then there's kind of a smaller piece at the back end of the base on each side. So when we're talking about no side overhang, we're talking about the part that is intended to contact the vehicle seat, which is these runners and these pieces here. So from this green line to this green line, everything in between must be fully supported left to right by the vehicle seat. And I'm sure we could all name off a couple of vehicles that have those jump seats, narrow jump seats in the center, that we like to take one of the outboard seats out and, you know, have a car seat overhang that little jump seat. Down in your lower left-hand corner, I've tried to show that depth. Those runners are about a ½ inch thick. So, you know, in I'm going to say a normal seating position, a larger, wider seating position, it's going to look like everything is touching the vehicle seat, right? Because it's kind of going to be a little more cushy and it's going to get absorbed into that push. But if we're looking at those narrow jump seats, and we're talking about this distance from here to here, everything in between those green lines should be firmly and flat on the vehicle seat. There is in the Poplar and Poplar S, we have added a note about switching or locking the retractor. It is not necessary in the ClickTight. ClickTight is a true, what many of you are calling a true lock off. It locks the seat belt, it tensions the seat belt, and it does not require the retractor to be locked. If you choose to lock it, or the caregiver wants it locked, it can be locked or switched after installation is properly achieved, following the step-by-step instructions of the user guide. Please do not pull on that shoulder belt to get that next click into the retractor, because simply all you're doing is pulling the webbing out, switching the retractor from ELR to ALR, and letting the retractor take up the excess webbing. So there is this on in the user guide. It is telling you to go to the FAQs if you do switch or lock the retractor, because if the caregiver needs to understand how to uninstall this. I said the belt paths are very similar to that of the ClickTight convertibles. Those seats have had latch plates wedged in the belt path because the retractors have been locked. And then the car seat ends up hanging in the air on this stuck seat belt. So this FAQ is on the website relative to the Poplar series car seats. Okay, hopefully that helps everyone out with that. So here is where we are looking at the, we actually installed the Boulevard on your left. We did make the Boulevard in some black shells, so don't, you know, it is a production seat, which overall on the outside of that shell, it represents the installation of the Marathon ClickTight, Boulevard ClickTight, and the Advocate ClickTight front to back, right? We know that the Advocate had those side impact cushions. And you'll see in the center position, actually, your Poplar and Poplar S is a little bit more compact than the previous version ClickTight convertibles. It actually sits a little bit lower than the previous versions, as well as we saw almost a good 10 degrees difference in recline, in maximum recline within the blue in this 2023 Honda CR-V. So we really liked the recline that we got out of this. We did as well install it, and I didn't share a picture of it, with the rebound reduced stability bar. And it didn't push the seat out at all. So overall, we got more recline in the seating area for the child in the Poplar version. as well as it was a little more compact front to back. All right. So when we look at our previous versions of Be Safe Gen 2, Gen 2 FlexFit, FlexFit Plus, these seats are all phasing out of the market. And you will continue to see them probably at retail, consumers purchasing them new, if you will. But we are no longer producing them. So they will remain on our website for a while to support our retailers, but these are phasing out. Okay. And I say phasing out, you're going to see them phase out through retail. They are no longer being manufactured or produced. The same goes with the Allegiance and the Emblem. They will be phasing through inventory as well. I think we here at Britax, I think we still have some emblems in inventory, but not a lot. And again, no longer being produced here in the United States or for the United States, and they will move through retail. So the last, of course, is the Marathon, Boulevard, and Advocate click tights. They as well are being phased out with the introduction of the Poplar and Poplar S convertible. So if you were after a specific model, in fact, I don't have any of these in inventory, so they have been removed from the technician discount. If there was one of these specifically that you were after for whatever reason, then if you see it at retail, you should purchase it there, because they will not be and are not being manufactured any longer. Moving on to our harness to booster category, being the Grow With You Click Tight, and Grow With You Click Tight Plus. These seats continue to be manufactured. I have nothing in my sight that at the moment that these are, slated to go away. Click Tight in this category works very, very well. Again, all safe wash fashions. Nothing about these seats have changed other than I would tell you, of course, maybe you're seeing some new fashions. Okay. 9 years from date of manufacture. The Grow With You baseline on the left does have the push-on connectors, where the Grow With You Click Tight and Click Tight Plus have hooks. And that is because really with Click Tight, we encourage you, our preferred method of installation is the seat belt with the Click Tight technology. Because the Grow With You baseline is dependent on either a locking retractor or a locking latch plate for that firm installation, we did use the push-on connectors with that platform. And that's why that platform has those. The two-stage belt positioning boosters, you have your Skyline on the left and the High Point on the right. The weight capacity for both as a high back with backrest and backless without the backrest are the same for both platforms. Your differences, I always say, it's obvious. It's obvious to many, but on your High Point on the right, you have the secure guard clip in the base between the child's legs, turning that 3-point seatbelt into a 4-point. And then you have those side impact cushions on the external of the side wings, okay? Both of these platforms have lower connectors in the base, They can, of course, they can be used in booster mode because it is only a booster. And they are only there to help position that seat when it's unoccupied, right? So you're just attaching those connectors and removing the slack from the webbing. We're not, pushing down and compressing and doing all kinds of funky things, because it's only there to hold the booster in position when it's unoccupied and there's not a child belted in. The One for Life all-in-one seat continues as well. 50 pounds rear facing, 22 to 65 forward, and up to that 120 pounds if it's used as a high back booster. 10 years expiration from the date of manufacture. The date of manufacture on the One for Life continues to be underneath the child's left knee. So you do have to lift up a couple layers of covers to get to it. And I think that nothing is unchanged about the cup holders. Short of the Poplar and Poplar S, either the cup holder or the cap needs to be in place. On the One for Life, as well as the Skyline and the High Point, if little Johnny throws the cup holder out the window or whatever happens to it and caregiver doesn't realize it, they are not structural, so they can be used without the cup holders until they want to call and purchase replacements. Okay. I threw this in there because we still tend to get these questions, see this out in social media a fair amount. And the pictures themselves I still have are a bit, you can tell they're a little bit older products, but the warning on your right-hand side is in every one of our products that can be used forward-facing. And basically it's saying, if the vehicle head restraint restricts the head restraint of the Britax product from moving freely up and down in its natural travel path, then you either need to remove the head restraint, move the Britax product to a different seating position. Often the center has a different vehicle head restraint. Or it may just be that because of the head restraint design of the vehicle, that child restraint is, type of child restraint cannot be used in that vehicle. We don't want the vehicle head restraint pushing the head restraint of the Britax product forward, pushing the child's head forward in an unnatural position. Okay. And again, that's nothing new, but we continue to see these questions. And I just wanted to cover that for all of you guys. So we are going to do a giveaway as a thank you for all of you guys participating today. And we are going to give away 2 Poplar S car seats. The lucky winners will get to pick the color, fashion, if you will, that you would like. And Miss Stephanie is going to pick use a random selector, pick those winners, and she will remind us where they're going to be located, where the winners are going to be posted online on the certification page, I believe. And then I will be reaching out to the winners directly to get your selection as well as your ship to address. All right. So with that, I want to thank you guys again for your time. My contact information here, I am going to tell you the easiest way to get a hold of me is via email. I do like to do emails at weird times of the night and day simply because I don't sleep so well all the time. I try to make my time useful. So, Miss Stephanie,
I,
do we have
yep,
questions?
I am here, Sarah. And if you look at all of the party balloons going up for the giveaways, people are super excited about that. So we do have questions. I wanted to start out though, the winners will be announced this afternoon on the National CPS Certification Facebook page. So National CPS Certification Facebook page is where you're gonna see that. And I will do a random for 2 winners. So we do have questions. We have about 8 minutes for questions, Sarah. And just wanted to start out, first of all, by the first comment that came up in the questions. Carrie put she had the opportunity to help a family with their new Willow seat on Saturday. The belt routing and the lock-off system was so easy to use and explain. And that was even a virtual seat check. So that is kudos right there. So thanks, Carrie, for sharing that. Brian was asking Sarah, if you can explain a little bit about the 6-year expiration date, knowing that some manufacturers, have a 10-year. If you can explain a little bit with Britax, the reasoning maybe for that.
Yep, and so hopefully you saw, Brian, we do have many of our products that are a 10-year expiration. Everything honestly except for our rear facing only seats. And that is just that they tend to not be used as long. It kind of makes sense, right, from the opposite end, that you would think that, well, you don't use them as long, so they would be used longer. But product marketing, the materials that we use to manufacture the seat, how long product wants one seat to be used, all plays a factor in those. There are some rear facing seats out there that, not ours, but other brands I know go up to 7 years. I'm not aware of any rear facing only that go to 10. I may be missing something, but I think I could almost say now everything, right? Our Poplar series, so the convertibles, the One for Life and the Booster, Skyline and High Point will all go to 10 years. And the harness to booster category, Grow With You Click Tight, and Click Tight Plus have a 9-year expiration date. If we revamp that line, it's very likely that you'll see those move to 10 years.
Okay, and then another question came up just really quickly about the winners. The winners will be also emailed as well, Taryn. So yes, if you don't have Facebook, that'll work as well. Sarah, Amy is asking, a lot of times I find even the smaller inner loops do not allow the harness to get tight enough. Therefore, it doesn't properly fit the child. And as a NICU RN, parents have a hard time, as they say, the car seat claims to fit as small as 4 pounds. Does this seat allow for this for the tiniest babies?
So when we do our fits, we have used the preemie doll in doing our fits. Most often it's hard to get a baby that small for the parents to allow us to do basic stuff, meaning just trying their fit. But we have put the huggable image 4-pounder in there, preemie, and it fits really rather well, just using the inserts and the buckle positions as well that come with the seat. So hopefully, Amy, you will find that these seats work in that area.
Perfect. Sarah asked if you could just expand a little bit on the explanation of the click tight lock off versus a belt tensioner. There's a lot of caregivers that are thinking it's the same thing.
That is awesome question, Sarah. So I'm trying to think of, if you've been around a long time and think about Britax products, right, that used to have lock-offs on the outside of the shell. on the rear facing belt path, and they kind of had an arm that closed. Graco has had some very nice lock offs, that those red ones, red and gray ones, right? And they've kind of got like a 2-arm, and the little round part snaps of the small part snaps onto the larger part. A lock off is simply locking your lap and shoulder belt together, presetting the distance of your lap belt, right? Because we know that the lap portion of the seat belt is what needs to be preset or locked in a fixed length to hold that car seat in place. A tensioner is doing what you and I do in some of those seats that have nothing built in, when we're pushing down and compressing the vehicle seat while we're pulling the slack out of the seatbelt system. And then you kind of got to hold the tension, compression on the vehicle seat, and hold the tension on the seat belt while either you're locking her tractor or closing a lock off. What I didn't talk about today, and I guess I kind of assumed that there was some understanding of click tight, right? When I say it's a lock off and a pre-tensioner, our step-by-step instructions walk you through routing the vehicle belt, making sure it's in a nice straight, laying nice in a nice straight line or flat with no excess webbing anywhere. And then you simply close the click tight mechanism. That's doing the tensioning part for you. As long as you don't have any big loops of excess slack, it is taking out that little bit of extra slack, a little bit of compression of your vehicle seat, so that you get that less than 1 inch of movement left to right, front to back, with a moderate handshake. True lock-offs, or things that are only lock-offs, are not doing that tensioning for you. You've still got to compress your vehicle seat. You still got to tension the seat belt before you close it. Hopefully that helps.